I got the hub back at the second they announced it at Day of Discovery, and have been going daily, sometimes twice daily, sessions with myself ever since. And so I muscle tested it today. I think I've done somewhere in the 58 to 59 session range on myself. And Steph and Hannah and all the ladies have witnessed all of the wild, amazing ideas that have come in. Because I leave them all of these amazing voice messages all the time on just what I'm like seeing and experiencing with my brain and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about the hub and the rain. I've had some experience with the rain myself as we are opening a quantum wellness center, and I actually flew out to the A4M or A4M medical conference in December of last year to experience the rain with Lauren. So amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, so let's get started here. Okay, so we're going to start talking about the hub. Now, I took this straight from Solex's site, but the AO Hub is a revolutionary mind engagement system. That's basically what it is. But the cool thing about it is it's literally an extension of the AO Scan technology. And what is so fascinating about that is when you have, we know the amazing things that the AO Scan does, but then when you have the hub on top of that, it's opening up a whole new world of possibilities. And so not only on our brain health, but also other health technology add-ons, okay? So the hub itself looks like a box. It comes with a bunch of wires, but it also has clips, which is the cranial electro stimulation for your ears. It comes with goggles that when they're turned on, they flicker. It's a full spectrum white light. And then you can also send frequencies, or you can use your MindSync or your inner voice through the actual hub on the actual transducers or headphones that they send to you, okay? Now there are ports on this hub for future health tech add-ons. And so when we were at Day of Discovery, and that's why I say we're talking about, holy cow, they're putting out all this technology, and we're all like, I got to buy everything. Uh-oh, now we've got Black Friday coming up. Is there going to be something else released? Because we don't always know. It just shows up. And so they were talking about laser pens. And so if you have a hub, they were actually showing us laser pens that they're going to be actually releasing here, which is probably soon. It also has a TENS plug-in port for you to do TENS with it. They were also, now I'm speculating, that's why I put a little question mark here. They were also demoing the RTMS, which is repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation. And so what we've noticed from Day of Discoveries in the past is they demo it a lot of times at these events, and then it becomes, and then it's released. And so I'm wondering myself, I don't know if this is going to be part of the hub, but this might actually be a plug-in to the hub at some point too. So pretty cool stuff. So let's talk about brain waves, all right? This is the part that, and I want you all to be thinking about this, because I didn't, we know in general theta waves are slower, more relaxing, different things like that. But in the hub, which is very different from the theta chamber only stimulates theta waves, whereas with the hub, we actually have the ability to stimulate 4 different waves, okay? And so, I had somebody ask me, because we're getting a theta chamber with our wellness center, is one better than the other? And I was like, I don't know, man, because I'm experiencing some amazing stuff. And the fact that you can stimulate different beta wave or different brain waves opens up a whole new avenue for healing and different things like that. And I think I did the calculations. I could buy 26 hubs for the cost of what it would cost for me to purchase a theta chamber. So if you could create your own brain wellness center, all you need are quite a few hubs and you're set, okay? And so I want you to just kind of absorb some of this information, all right? Because when you start thinking about brain waves, is which ones do I want to stimulate? Which ones do I want to avoid stimulating in different sessions and different things like that? Or if you're a practitioner working with clients, why would I want to stimulate theta over gamma or beta over alpha and those types of things? And so theta waves, basically, they run in the 4 to 8 hertz range, all right? But these are your ideal relaxation ones, all right? People that meditate regularly are usually getting to the theta state, okay? This is also, if you follow Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I adore, absolutely adore, you know, he calls it what does he call it? He calls it the quantum field, or the I forget the word that he uses for it, but basically when you have a regular meditation practice, and when I was reading this book recently, they study the brainwaves of like Zen monks and different things like that. They are actually training their brains to get into this theta wave state, okay? This is where you're kind of in that twilight state between actual like when you're in that state where you're falling asleep, but not completely a deep sleep, like delta waves, all right? There's a lot of magic that happens in that state, okay? And that's why people that meditate on a regular basis are doing all kinds of wild stuff with changing their biology, even in their bodies and different things like that. Our bodies we do not get a whole lot of this theta wave state. I have read anywhere between a few seconds to a few minutes every night if you don't have an actual meditation practice, okay? So the next one is alpha waves. So alpha waves in your like maybe 8 to 12 hertz range. Those are when you're alert, but you're just calm and relaxed, okay? I kind of look at that as more of like my just calm, alert, but kind of sort of just sitting there thinking kind of state, but not actually falling asleep kind of thing. Then we go into your beta waves. So these are faster, okay? So think of your lower hertz ranges as your more relaxive states, right? So when you get into these higher hertz ranges, you're thinking more active in your brain, all right? So your beta waves go from maybe 12 to 35 hertz, but they boost cognitive activity and problem solving, but they can also be linked to stress, okay? Stress and anxiety. And so if you think about if you're working with yourself or somebody else, if somebody who is already pretty stressed and anxious, you may not want to be stimulating beta waves. You might want to be doing more relaxive theta or alpha or something like that. So now we get into our gamma waves, okay? Gamma waves are 35 hertz or higher. In some of these older books I've been reading, they're called like high beta waves. I have been having some amazing experiences with stimulating gamma waves with myself recently, but these facilitate hyper focus and advanced cognitive processing, all right? So think about people with, let's just say, so for me, like I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but now I'm probably would self-diagnose myself with that. But I have not been able to just sit down and read a book forever. And I sat here all day on Saturday and read a book. And we're not talking like a fun fiction story. We're talking about a book all about the brain, okay? Normally, I would not have the attention span to be able to do that. But it was just having amazing aha stuff. Before I was working on this project, I actually got up very early yesterday morning. It was about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get this done. And I did a session just using the memory and focus programs along with stimulating gamma waves. And I literally started this, all of this yesterday morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I finished it by 9 a.m. Drank no coffee, hardly even took a break, and I was completely engaged in it, which is just completely unheard of with myself. So pay attention to those types of things, okay? Because we're going to talk about waves, different brain waves, and what are like kind of what they see with different neurological issues. So the hub has 3 different, I guess, categories of programs, but there are many programs in there. There's dependencies, which is basically all of your addictions, okay? And if you look here too, how many of us have kids, and I probably need this one too, how many of us are addicted to our devices, all right? And so there are programs here that pretty much any of us could actually benefit from. Then you get into your physical stuff, and so that's where you're going to find your pain, your insomnia, your hormones, different things like Parkinson's, MS, those types of things. And then here we have your emotional, so anxiety, depression, anger, fear, et cetera, et cetera. All right. These are all choices for programs on the hub. So I want to talk with you a little bit about synergy, all right? Because when we start talking about some of these different modalities that the hub uses, I'm also going to share with you about some other modalities that use like one of these or two of these or different things like that, okay? And the beauty about everything that Lauren does is he creates synergy. He creates technology, and he creates different products that have synergy, okay? So what is synergy? It's the interaction of two or more elements to produce a combined effect that is greater than the sum of their parts, okay? It becomes a compounding effect, just like when you're working in groups, right? We are much powerful together than we are individually, all right? So think of that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cranial electrical stimulation. So when you get your hub, there's just these little clips, okay? Don't get scared about electrical stimulation. They're just little pulsed electrical rhythmic pulses that are sent through the ears to the brain, okay? Our brains are basically like a master motherboard computer, okay? And we are sending all of these signals constantly, electrical signals throughout our brains, okay? And sending signals to our body to do all of the things that it needs to do to function, all right? Another form, and I'm going to tell you this because Hannah is familiar with this, is we used to be neurofeedback practitioners. Neurofeedback is actually a form of cranial electrical stimulation. It just has the feedback aspect of using electrodes to actually measure the brain waves, but then send information back to the brain to change their brain waves. So it's just influencing the brain waves in a different way, okay? So I did not list the actual studies on this. However, there's a book that will give you all of these studies. I had somebody ask me one time, is the theta chamber an FDA approved device? And it actually is not. However, cranial electrical stimulation is an FDA approved medical device, okay? And so there are many, many studies out there, way back from even starting the 80s and the 90s, of cranial electrical stimulation. And it's actually approved for, I think, anxiety, depression, and I think pain. And so there is tons of information that you can find out there. And so if you are working with clients or working with people and they're saying, well, I need to see the studies on there. You are not going to find the studies on the hub or the theta chamber, but you can find just a whole wealth of information on each of these specific modalities that are used in the hub and the theta chamber. So just cranial electrical stimulation alone, this is just one aspect of this, okay? Enhances cognitive functioning, helps with memory, helps with learning disabilities, helps with head injury. I just noticed a typo there. I get so frustrated with typos, it's so funny. Significant changes in personality, increased alertness. It directly stimulates your autonomic nervous system. How many of us do need that? Immediate powerful effects in increasing brain chemicals. And it's effective treatment for anywhere from anxiety, spasticity in Parkinson's, learning disabilities, sensory integration and fine motor coordination, and even with cerebral palsy. So we're going to talk about flickering light therapy, and I believe it's called photostimulation, but it's another way to actually send information to the brain, which then sends electrical impulses to the body, okay? But it's using the photoreceptors in the eye, okay? So basically, The light goes through the eye, translates to electrical impulses, but then it stimulates the brain via the visual cortex and the hypothalamus. And so if you haven't experienced this before, it looks like glasses or goggles, but when you're laying there doing your session, when you close your eyes, those lights are doing all kinds of different patterns. What is so amazing though is when your brain goes into the full integration state, you start literally, even though it's just white light, you can start seeing, people have had actually visions too, but you can start seeing colors and geometric patterns and all kinds of stuff. It's a really amazing and sometimes kind of trippy experience. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this too. And you all may be familiar with binaural beats and sound therapy and those types of things, but this is another way to stimulate brainwave activity, okay? And so sound, it goes through the nerve endings in our ear, but then it translates into electrical impulses that way, which then stimulates the brain and all of that and all down the line. But the way that a binaural beat is created, it's just the difference in frequency between two sound frequencies, okay? And so even though it doesn't have a sound, what it does is it integrates both sides of the brain, and then the brain basically will train to the difference in that frequency, all right? If you've ever heard Lauren talk about it, I specifically remember when they released MindSync last year, was that MindSync, he's actually using the layering of your voice with a difference of 8 hertz. And so 8 hertz is basically like high, I guess it's kind of low alpha, high theta frequency. And so it's training your brain that way to relax you, even with your voice along with the sound. And so imagine how powerful that is and what it's really doing. So I kind of did these together because a lot of these studies are light and sound therapy together, okay? And so this also gives you an idea of, like, if you all are familiar with, I know it's the brain tap or different types of devices and this type of thing. The reason why they say that they have also studies is because there's lots of studies out there around light and sound therapy used together, okay? So there is literally documented information that it can increase your IQ score. That just blew me my mind. Increases states of relaxation, increases neurochemical release, increased creativity and flexibility. Actually, I thought this was interesting. Sedative properties for patients prior to, during, and immediately following surgery. And also much research on just treatment of migraines, chronic pain, anxiety, stress, etc. And also just more of a brain exerciser. And so when you think about that, as we age and stuff like that, it becomes a way to keep our brain exercising and exercising its muscles kind of thing. So let's talk about addiction. This was one of my favorite ones to do some research on because addiction, it's kind of near and dear to our heart as far as our family, but also to understand why the theta chamber and therefore the hub are so amazing with working with addictions, okay? And so a lot of times people become addicted to substances because it's a way, it's almost like an unconscious way to produce or get neurochemicals in their brain. And so, just like anybody in this world, we're all different as far as what, the amount of hormones we produce, the amount of neurochemicals we produce, different things like that. And it's so fascinating to read up about this, because if you are a person, let's just say, that naturally does not feel happy, doesn't get those happy feelings, those happy brain chemicals, you may be unconsciously searching things out to do that, whether it is with food or with substances or alcohol or different things like that. And so ultimately, in a lot of ways, it's a way to also know that sometimes it's not your fault. You're actually literally self-medicating. And so some information, just opioids take place of endorphins. I'm not going to go over everything, but it also blocks production of our brain's adrenaline. And so what happens is if somebody who is using a user of opioids, when they stop, it's like the adrenaline floods in, and that's what causes that anxiety and that with those withdrawal type symptoms. With cocaine, it actually stimulates our brain to produce pleasure feelings and dopamine and different things like that. But it actually stimulates the brain to overproduce that. And so if you've ever been around somebody who has been a user of cocaine, it's like they're, depending on how long they go through this process, when they stop it, it's like a complete crash into depression because they've just depleted those chemicals from their brain. And so what's interesting with addiction is that depending on the severity and how long somebody has gone through this process, it can literally take the brain anywhere from sometimes months to years to return to its baseline neurochemical production. And so that's why a lot of times people experience this. It's called anhedonia, but people that, let's say they no longer have the physiological urge to use again, but they can't experience pleasure or fun. It's like this no fun syndrome. And it's just, they're just depressed. They can't experience fun or pleasure in a lot of ways. And sometimes that's what trips people into relapsing, is because their body is not producing those chemicals, okay? And so when you're using, as with the theta chamber or the hub, you're using the light, sound, and cranial electrical stimulation along with your theta and alpha brain waves. It causes the brain to actually quickly pour out large quantities of those chemicals that have been suppressed or depleted by these substances. And so the brain can literally return to baseline within a couple of weeks, okay? And so when you think about in the theta chamber and some of these other things, they talk about doing a 28-day treatment program, okay? And I can give you an example of this too. My boyfriend's daughter has had a history of fentanyl addiction, and she went through a 30-day treatment program, but we actually brought her here to Texas, and she did a 28-day program in the theta chamber. And it was so wild because I didn't know her very well. I never knew her before she had an issue with addiction or anything like that. But Roger kept telling me, you know, after it was like she flipped a switch somewhere in the 17 to 21 day time frame, where all of a sudden he was like, she's like a little girl again. Like she was smiling, she was happy, she was engaging, all of these things that she had not done for years. And so along with that, though, is there's a huge potential using this device when you're going through like a detox or withdrawal type symptoms. So it's fascinating stuff. So I'm going to talk a little bit about anxiety and stress. And so people with anxiety, and this is documented, people with anxiety have more of a decreased like alpha and theta wave. So think they have more decreased of the relaxation wave, okay? Relaxation brain waves, but they have high beta, okay? But also there's not a lot of brain synchronization going on, all right? So rapid shifts in brain waves all over the place, right? I used to have high anxiety, and so I know what this feels like in the physical too, okay? You're just all over the place. And so with that though, becomes you've got elevated stress chemicals, right? Your elevated cortisol, adrenaline, etc. And so when you use these together, it directly stimulates the autonomic nervous system. And so when you are using the hub, you can switch to the relaxation response very quickly and in one session, okay? And with that becomes, you've got a rapid increase of serotonin and then a decrease in your stress hormones, all right? And then you have an increase in your pleasure neurochemicals. And so over time, all right, because this is the thing with these types of devices is one session is not going to cut it, because depending on how long somebody's been dealing with anxiety, depression, etc., those are the kind of the brain waves. That's their normal. That's their neural pathway. Okay, that's their pathway, their anxiety pathway. And you need to keep training the brain into this, this regulating of their stress chemicals and regulating their nervous system. And when you do that, then after a period of time, it's an automatic, the brain can automatically self-regulate. And so when you think about this, you probably would not, with somebody with anxiety or stress, you're not going to want to stimulate, let's say, beta or something like that, because you could create more stress for them, or a higher anxiety response. And so with depression's a little bit different, all right? Depression is more a characteristic of helplessness. It's like, I've just given up. It's not a fight, flight, freeze. It's just helplessness, okay? But what's interesting with that is people that are dealing with depression, they have a very low amplitude of their brain waves, okay? They're just like not very strong. They're more active in one part and different things like that. And so with that becomes, and I used to actually, I'll give you an example. It's so interesting because when you start thinking about medications and stuff like that, I went through postpartum depression, way back when my kids were younger. And, these SSRIs and different things like that, what they're doing is they're causing changes in the chemistry in your brain to get you out of that state where now we have something that's non-invasive, but can actually get you feeling better almost quicker, because those chemicals, those pharmaceuticals take a while to build up into your system, but then they're only working on several different neurochemicals, but what's it doing to the balance of all of that? Okay. What I remember, I used to be on a very high dose of sertraline, was I no longer felt the lower depression. However, I couldn't really feel the high stuff either. Like, it was like I was just kind of numbed out. I was just at a certain level. So it's like, maybe I wasn't depressed, but I also couldn't feel very happy either. And so very quickly, using this type of technology, you can increase serotonin and dopamine in the brain, okay? But also bring in a synchronization with your brain waves, okay? So now we're going to talk about weight loss. I love this because I've worked with some stuff with another company's supplement and different things like that. And it's just so interesting that the thing that we struggle with, all of us, okay, is not that we don't know how to do. It's like that we just can't do it, or we can't stick with it, okay? And so we know we need to eat healthy and we should move our bodies, right? And drink water and all those things, right? But for whatever reason, we might binge Halloween candy or something like that, but we don't quite know why. And so there is literally cellular memory with this stuff, okay? And so all of you out there who struggle with this, I just want to tell you that this is literally like in your cells, okay? This is like generational too, all right? So when we talk about diets, when we're cutting back, let's say on calories or different things like that, it literally can trigger the scarcity response in our body, okay? Our ancestors had times where food was scarce, okay? And so it created a response in our body to increase all these chemicals and different things like that, but also to store fat, okay? And so, but when that happens though, it can create this kind of low level anxiety also. So when you're depriving yourself, you can also create an actual stress response in your body where you're also releasing more cortisol and different things like that, okay? This was interesting to me, but when when we're in our mommy's belly, okay, our moms, when they're pregnant with us, create a very high level of endorphins, okay, that we get when we are growing in our inside of the womb, okay? And when we're born, and then when we breastfeed through the mother's milk, we're actually getting all of those endorphins also, okay? Now, anybody who has breastfed their children understand that there is just a connection unlike anything else, okay? It is the most amazing feeling for the mother and the child, anything in the world. But when you think about this, what is the cellular memory of high endorphins and this mother's comfort, okay, and this feeling of just oneness, all right? I mean, I think we probably spend our whole lives trying to get back to that feeling, okay? And so it's so interesting because that literally is in our cellular memory too, is that we associate endorphins, okay, with mother's love, with comfort, with feeling good, okay? And so how much do we center our lives around eating and eating in groups, right? And eating, as meals together. It's like this togetherness, okay? And it's like we're almost creating that oneness. We're wanting to create that feeling, that initial feeling of oneness with our mothers and love and stuff like that. And so that's why if you stress eat or you eat to relieve, and to get relief and different things like that, it's because you're associating endorphins with that stress, with relieving that anxiety and that stress response, okay? And so a lot of times we have to not blame ourselves because it is a thing that just is, okay? And so, and again, when you're talking about anywhere from, let's say, a sugar addiction or different things like that, if our brain is not actually creating endorphins or as many to begin with, we may be self-medicating in those ways with food and different things like that. And so when you also, not only with the light and sound, but when you actually create or stimulate the theta state, that's the ultimate oneness meditative state, okay? And so that actually is amazing to work with weight loss and weight release and different things like that. I kind of put these all together, ADHD, brain injuries, different things like that, because they are very similar, the way that they look as far as brainwave activity, okay? And so learning disorders, and again, I'm saying even from brain injury, because some of the symptoms of brain injury are very similar to a learning disorder, whether it can't hold attention, don't have good memory, can't focus or whatever. And so learning disorders themselves or brain injuries, et cetera, are linked to abnormally slow brainwave activity, all right? And so I say that to say that a lot of these people are going to be in these slower brain waves of maybe already alpha and theta. So you may want to think about stimulating some of these faster brain waves, if they're not all stressed out and anxious and different things like that. And so there is actual documented success in restoring memory with patients with head injury and amnesia, okay? Improvement in mental speed, visual motor functioning, control, visual and auditory perception, mental control, etc. This was really fascinating down here in the bottom. They reference in this book that I read of a lady who was actually a stroke patient who had originally started out with a 140 IQ, but after her stroke went down to like 70 or 80 or something like that. And they were using just light and sound stimulation, but over a period of a year. And she literally got all of her, basically all of her IQ back. But then there's also information on how it literally helped with just movement in her body and, different things like that, coordination and all of that. So it's just so fascinating how this can be used. And I will give you an example with me. I mentioned gamma with myself, but I was just playing around the internet today and there are these companies out there that are actually going through the process of doing clinical trials to get light and sound brainwave stimulation in the gamma range for treatment for Alzheimer's. And so, but they're using, they're using similar stuff, but maybe a little bit different, but it's flashing lights or cranial electrical stimulation or something similar or a variation of that. And so I would not be surprised to see more of this stuff out there and used in more of the traditional medical side also in the future. So these are just some testimonials that I found with the hub and with the rain. Everything's pretty new, right? And so there's still so much to discover. And so this lady here, Maureen B, says that her husband's tremor went away and he's sleeping better just by using the hub. This middle one is from Abby, and this is my friend Christy's friend, but she got a concussion last month and was having daily headaches, light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, and some strange things with her eyes. And then so far, every single one of those things has improved. She's no longer having headaches. Her eyes have improved, no more light and noise sensitivity. That right there, y'all, is a gift. I mean, that is a gift. What is that worth to somebody? Okay. This is another one from my friend Christy. Christy's son had challenges with calling letters and numbers. He decided to try the hub, and this is after one session. The next day during his reading lesson, he was recalling and sounding out basic words. And so I'll give you an example, even just with me. I've told you some things I've noticed with myself. However, I started using the hub with my children myself, and it's so interesting because they ended up doing only a series of maybe 10 sessions. But what I was noticing is much less reactivity between all three of them. What's so interesting too is much less, I guess, rigidity. And so I say rigidity in the way that, like, my oldest, she won't eat a fruit or a vegetable hardly at all. And she started eating vegetables. And still has. And so it's so amazing just how this type of technology can be used in just so many ways. With me, I'll give you an example. I would have never considered myself an alcoholic in the past, but drinking has been a very big part of my life. And I started using the hub daily and with the alcohol setting. And what I have noticed is that I was one of those people that I guess I was self-medicating because I was stressed out and different things like that. I'd have a stressful day. I'm going to have a glass of wine or two or different things like that. But I never really went maybe longer than 2 days, a lot of times without having a drink. And what I would notice too was when I did go out and party or go out dancing or different things like that, which I don't do very often anymore, I would start, but I just never wanted to stop. I just didn't want the party to end, kind of thing. And it's so fascinating because my experience through this has totally changed, where if I do have alcohol, it's very easy for me to cut it off, but then I don't use it now to work through stress or anything like that. And so it's just been such a freeing experience for myself. And so you think about just how many people in our lives that, may not have to go through, an alcohol treatment program, but are using and self-medicating in different ways to basically get through life. And so it's just been an amazing, amazing experience. So let's talk about synergy. And I want to share this because, and these are just some ideas that I came up with. And I'm saying synergy in the way of how can we use different products and different Solex supplements and those types of things together, okay? And so right here, think about this from a weight loss or weight release program, okay? If you could use the AO Hub, all right, and a lot of times we know with weight release, there's usually a hormone aspect to it, and then there's a lot of times there's some type of an overeating or different things like that. And so you can tailor the programs with the AO Hub of, let's say, hormone balance, there's a weight one, and then like a stress, somebody stress eats, or They have mentioned people using the theta chamber have said that if you use like the cocaine setting, for people that have a tendency to binge eat and different things like that, that's actually helping our body release more endorphins so we don't overeat and different things like that. So imagine pairing that with something like our core supplements, like the AO Gut and the AO Youth and different things like that. You literally could have the ultimate in the weight release program, all right, for yourself or for clients. I call this the ultimate Zen because this is how I do the AO Hub. I do the AO Hub on my AO Infinity mat, all right? And so, you know, with the Infinity mat, you've got the frequency. I always tune it to the Schumann hertz. And so I'm grounding while I'm doing it, also getting the infrared heat and different things like that, which is relaxing. This I've come up with in my head, but I haven't tried this yet, but I'm calling it the ultimate brain biohack because we know that Solex Blue crosses the blood-brain barrier and what it does with mitochondria. What if you actually did blue before you did a hub session, and then you also put a 660 band on to really increase circulation and stuff like that? And so if you try all of things, any of these things, let me know because I'm going to start experimenting with it. But it's just so awesome now that we have literally a full spectrum quantum wellness center that we can have in our house or in, you know, in our practice. It's just unbelievable. All right, so I'm going to go into rain now. And then if you all, I'm not looking at the chat, but if you all have questions or anything, we're going to answer those afterwards. All right. So AO Rain, Rain is, this comes off of the Solex website too, is a revolutionary technology designed to harness the incredible power of negative ions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's so interesting what it looks like, okay? Because it does remind you a little bit of like shower head, okay? I will tell you, me personally, myself, I have been obsessed with the rain chair. And this is one piece of the technology that was basically the catalyst for me opening a quantum wellness center that caused me to fly to Las Vegas to check it out back in December of last year because I had to know because I could not get it out of my head since Lauren talked about it last September. So amazing, amazing, amazing. So before we get into negative ions, let's talk a little bit about positive ions, right? Because in general, people don't quite know a whole lot about this, all right? When there's an excess of positive ions in our environment and in our body, there are some pretty big negative effects it can have on our health, okay? And so just in general, triggers, you know, stress response, it actually can increase, if you're a person who's already pretty stressed and anxious, it can make it even more so. When you've got an excess of positive ions going on, we're talking fatigue, reduced mental clarity. How many of us are dealing with brain fog? I know I have been in the past, respiratory issues, headaches, you know, it's so funny. I typed this twice. I just noticed that weakened immune system, reduced oxygen levels, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So where do positive ions come from? So air pollution. All right. But air pollution in the way of not only like vehicle emissions and different things like that, think about the air quality in your house, okay? Anywhere from the VOCs to the paint to the stuff that I don't know, they spray your carpets and rugs and the cleaning products and all the other things. And so, you know, even some of us that are more kind of crunchy holistic have tried to eliminate a lot of this stuff out of our home environment. You know, we still have electricity, we still have dust in our house, or, you know, we still have you know, appliances and different things like that. And so EMFs create a lot of positive ions in our environment, pollen and mold, high temperature and humidity. And so that was interesting. I live in South Texas, and so it's always very humid and high temperatures here. and different things like static electricity. And so when you think of that, you know, where are the highest concentrations of positive ions in our environment? In our homes, sadly. And even if we spend a lot of time outside, you know, we're still inside our house at least, I don't know, you know, at least the time that we're sleeping. So at least 8 to 12 hours every day we are in our homes, okay? And we are literally just marinating in this stuff, okay? So what is so amazing about negative ions? Negative ions are called the vitamins of the air. And the reason why is because they enhance the air quality, okay? They attach to positively charged particles, causing them to fall to the ground. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people here. I see behind Hannah, she's got a salt lamp. You know, think about salt lamps, okay? I have like 5 or 6 of those in my house, all right? They generate negative ions, okay? So they are very good for, you know, for the air and different things like that, but not to the level that our negative ion share does, okay? And so negative ions positively influence our mood, our emotional well-being. They improve our respiratory health. How many people, there's a place here in town that has a salt room. You know, salt rooms are known for people to go to when they have allergies and asthma and respiratory stuff going on, okay? Amazing, amazing, amazing for our respiratory health. Negative ions also enhance our cognitive function, increase our energy levels, improve concentration, that type of thing. I'm laughing because everything's twice. So I'm just really putting it in there for you. Read it twice. All right. So where do we find these negative ion concentrations? All right. So now these numbers will change depending on where you look, all right? Because I had ChatGPT do this one, and then I was talking with Roger, and he's like, "You sure it's 100,000?" I don't even know, okay? But at the beach, you know, how do you feel at the beach, right? What makes you why do we feel so good at the beach, or when we're in the forest at the waterfall, right? We're breathing better, we're more grounded, you know, our mood's better. It's because we're getting an influx of all of these negative ions that we don't normally have exposure to, okay? And so at the beach, we're looking at 2,500 to 10,000 per cubic centimeter. If you're actually in the ocean, like a roaring ocean, maybe 10 to 20,000. The highest is usually like let's say you're in the middle of a forest and standing in a waterfall, okay? Now, even in your backyard, so we've had conversations about this in the past, is we know that it's good for us to get out in nature and get out in our yards and put our feet in the grass and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, the negative ions in your backyard is not much at all, okay? So average maybe 200 per cubic centimeter, all right? Inside our homes is even less than that, all right? So what does the rain do? Check this out. Rain gives you a constant flow of 900,000 per cubic centimeter of negative ions, okay? And so, and it could be actually more too. Lauren has a device, and actually when I flew out to Las Vegas, he actually handed me the device. And so I was in a big room, full of all these booths and all this equipment. And when I held it, he's like, "Hold this." And it literally was maybe like 100 something. And then he had me sit underneath the negative ion rain and had me hold the device again. And so we sat there and watched it, and it went up to 900,000. Now, the reason why it stopped at 900,000 is because this device only goes to 900,000. Okay, so it could be way more than that even. So in your body, when you're actually sitting under the rain, okay, the negative ions are actually going to, they're going to attract the positive ions, okay? And so what it will do is when you sit under the rain, if anybody's experienced it, sometimes it's like you get a jolt, okay? It's like it's like all the ions in your body just polarize very quickly. It's very instant, okay? And it's like this jolt. And then all of a sudden, over time, you start feeling more and more relaxed, okay? And basically what those ions are doing, those negative ions are, they're attaching to the positive ions, the excess in your body, and it's neutralizing all of that, okay? Which brings your body into homeostasis within about 30 to 45-minute session, okay? It's going to neutralize all of the EMF effects on your body. All right. How amazing is that? So, you know, yes, we've got bracelets and all these things and all that, but this is like that on steroids. All right. It's going to help improve mood, clear your brain fog. It promotes emotional stability. There are huge benefits for increased respiratory health. All right. So if you have people that are dealing with a lot of respiratory issues, this device is fabulous for that, okay? Think about all of the things as far as even just going through like cold and flu season or some of these crazy viruses that are going on. Like I think about when my kids had RSV when they were babies, how would they have benefited from something like this? Wound healing, reducing inflammation, cardio health, better digestion, better sleep. It actually inhibits the sympathetic nervous system and enhances parasympathetic. So it's going to put you into that, it's going to help with that stress response in the body and put you into a more relaxed state. Gives you a complete mitochondria charge. And it can, Lauren said this, slow down the process of aging. Say, who doesn't want that? So if you've watched the video, the YouTube video, Lauren mentions somebody who actually has used it in Florida. I think he's in Florida to relieve Parkinson tremors. And he also mentioned somebody who used it for morning sickness, okay? The cool thing about the hub, I'm sorry, the rain is that there are no contraindications. Anybody can use it, all right? This is a testimony I found from this person about 1.5 weeks into using rain almost daily for 30 to 45 minutes. I've been having relatively intense middle back pain starting during sleep hours, and it is 95% gone. Sleep seems to be higher quality, and I'm remembering dreams more consistently, which hadn't happened for years. Also, my 15-year-old jumps on the rain whenever he has a headache and is able to nip it in the bud. This is a person who used the rain and definitely noticed very quickly a change in her breathing, and that her husband felt relaxed. So let's talk about synergy again. I will tell you, and I mentioned here that AO Rain enhances everything because it literally does. And so imagine, like, let's just say having a practice where you do IVs. I used to work in a place where we did IV ozone, and we would have to use heparin to thin the blood. And so what if we could just have somebody sit under the rain chair, because the circulation is going to be so much better. Their blood's not going to be all clumped up. It's going to be all nice and flowing. So imagine if you were a practitioner and you either had somebody sit under the rain while they're doing some of your other types of therapies, or even did it as an add-on or something before you were working with a client. And so just anywhere from massage, it doesn't matter. If you had somebody sit in a rain before they did massage, you're going to relax that whole nervous system, relax the muscles before you even get them into that, doing the actual physical manipulation part of it. Again, I'm all about mitochondrial boost. We know that the Solex Blue is like a huge boost to our mitochondria. So I was like, dang, what if we did these two together? What would happen there? I probably could like run a marathon. I'm gonna try it. And so, and then ultimately the ultimate brain or biohack. So think of that. We know that the hub stimulates all of these chemicals in the brain, but so does the rain. And so what if you use them both together? Okay, because the rain is going to get all of that EMF stuff out of your body and all the different things. And then also the hub is going to do the direct brain stimulation. I mean, that is like the ultimate brain biohack, I think, right there. Now, I don't have a brain just yet, but I would like to see somebody try to use them both at the same time. That would be an interesting thing too.